I thought take a walk was a metaphor. You actually meant it.
Nope.
Oh!
It was a metaphor.
Let me start with a fundamental question about Yellowstone. Season 5, Episode 5, Watch 'em Right Away. When Beth and Summer were fighting, who were you cheering for? Think about it. Be honest. Emotionally, did you want the mouthy Summer Higgins to get beat up? Or when she reveals she had 9 years of jiu-jitsu, did you get a little bit excited? Answer in the comments. It's Billy Dukes and me. I got a little excited. I wanted to see Beth Dutton get her butt kicked, and I bet I'm not in the minority. Oh, that felt good. But this right here is the problem with Yellowstone Season 5. When a large part of the audience is cheering for one of television's biggest stars to get beat up, that's a problem. This week I'm going to deviate slightly from the recap and breakdown format of these after-show videos, in part because there's really not all that much that needs extra analysis. We thought we'd see a meeting between Chief Rainwater and John Dutton because they put one on the calendar last episode. We thought we'd learn more about who Sarah Atwood is after Beth realizes that's not her real name. We thought the plot line around the wolves shot on the Dutton Ranch would be advanced. None of that happened. Aside from a scene between Sarah Atwood and Jamie that left her intentions even less clear than before. Side note, who else here knew that snap dress was coming off as soon as she walked into the room? Episode 5 looked to be about cowboy stuff, which I was really excited about. Give a thumbs up if you were too, and please consider subscribing. At its core, Yellowstone is the Dutton family's story about fighting for their way of life, and when the show has been great, we've lived that life and that fight with them. Sure, there were a few side dishes along the way, like Rip and Beth's love story, Jamie and Beth's feud, and Walker and Lloyd's brawl, but it all came back to what Kevin Costner was fighting for. That's relatable. Every mother and father in America can apply his battles to their own battles at home to protect family at all costs. So it was great for when about 6 minutes we were in that world once again, but then things took a hard left, pivoted over to Beth Dutton. It was the Beth Show, and Beth has been the subject of a lot of criticism throughout each season of Yellowstone, but it really ramped up during Season 5 because she seems to be becoming more unhinged with every hour of television. There was the yes ma'am scene with Jamie.
Say yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
And then when she told Jamie she'd take his baby from him. Then of course, what happened most recently, John recognizes this all in late in episode 5 when he tells Rip he thought that she'd chill out as she got older, but she just seems to be getting more and more wild.
You know, I got one child I miss. One child I pity. One I regret. But that girl, that child I envy.
I don't necessarily feel his envy here, but that's a father's prerogative. Subscribers of this channel know that we've both been defensive and critical of Beth. On one hand, she delivers the best lines like these.
Or that hairy hippie giving syphilis to our sofa. That hippie, she must be able to suck a marble through a soda straw. But I thought we could stake your inmate out in the field, seeing as she loves to eat the grass.
On the other hand, she treats people really poorly. Taylor Sheridan has done a brilliant job of finding balance between the two Beths so that we feel kind of uncomfortable with her character, but never turned off by her. That's changed. All of those clips you just saw were from the same episode. And who talks like that all the dang time? I started to notice this pattern of quippy dialogue early in episode 3 during a morning sequence at the ranch house. Rip awakes to find Beth getting ready for work and asks why she's going to Salt Lake City.
Loose ends, baby. Loose ends.
Then Beth walks outside and 30 seconds later it's...
Why are you up so early, honey?
Keeping my promise to you.
Who in the world would be satisfied from that kind of answer from your wife or daughter? I really don't think it's rude to just smile and maybe chuckle and say, but for real, what are you doing? I don't know, am I off base here? Comment below or email me at staff@tasteofcountry.com if you want to call me an idiot. We'll explore all of this a little bit more during our newest episode of the Dutton Rules podcast, links in the description below. It all continues early in episode 5 when she dances around what woke her up and why she's suddenly emotional. About 20 minutes later, we find her in the tack room with Rip, sulking like a teenager because he didn't show enough enthusiasm about the prospect of her going on a cattle drive with him.
I'll get a suite at the Wynn, go catch the thunder down under.
I mean, at times she has the emotional intelligence of a 16-year-old. Rip looks to be about the only adult in the room most of the time, and he ends up being the one to intervene during Summer and Beth's fight.
This is the kind of manners that you want to teach that boy. And you, I don't know you, but I know this. You're never going to convince someone to think the way that you think by insulting them in their own house.
No, he didn't stop it, but he steered it towards a conclusion after doing the disappointed dad thing. John, he has a habit of introducing bad ideas, like inviting Beth to eat with Summer, and then making them worse by refusing to manage the outcomes. He's constantly shocked, I tell you, by his daughter's bad behavior. I think we call that enabling. All of this built up to an 11-minute long fight sequence that was really good in a vacuum. I know, I just spent several minutes complaining about where Season 5 is going, but please, believe me when I say I don't think Season 5 is bad, it's just not meeting the high bar that the previous 4 seasons have set. To me, it's a little bit like watching any network television drama. Right now, I like it like I like Blue Bloods, and that feels like a little bit of a letdown. There are 2 very clear problems with where this season is at. The first is that the delicious side dish has become the main course. Beth and all of her crazy should be like Kramer from Seinfeld. I mean, we loved Kramer, but it can't be Kramer's story that we're tuning in for week after week. That wears thin, leading to viewers hoping that someone you once cheered for gets the baloney kicked out of her by some woman fresh out of the women's prison. At that moment, I'd argue that the obnoxious environmentalist was the more lovable character. The second problem is similar, but has to do with the writing of the script. We loved Bethisms.
One big happy family. And an assistant. And a hooker. I don't know what could make this any better.
But they only work if they're used sparsely. One an episode, maybe, and certainly not every time she talks. Taylor Sheridan has shown some restraint with using things like the train station as a prop. I mean, how ridiculous would it be if Rip were dropping 1, 2, or 3 bodies off at the train station every single episode? With Beth, it feels like he's constantly trying to come up with things that look good on a t-shirt. A third problem is that no one seems to know what to do with the characters who seem genuinely normal. These are the Jerry Seinfelds of the show, or maybe the Jim Halperts if you're more of a fan of The Office. Rainwater's plotline has almost disappeared since Season 3 ended. Jimmy and his new wife Emily have not even been mentioned this season, even though Jefferson White and Catherine Kelly are listed in the opening credits every week. They say Season 5 is split into 2 halves, but a couple of actors have told me that filming for the second half won't even begin until March, which means we won't get it until like spring or summer. That's 2 seasons in my book. 2 7-episode seasons, but we're getting a full dose of Beth's drama every episode. I think the conversation about how you feel about Beth is really misdirected. How we feel about her is more a reflection about how we feel about the season we're watching. And that's kind of hard to reconcile because we're so committed to this show. And last thing now, in spirit of keeping this a recap video, the fight does the job John hopes it will, and the 2 women seem to have found some measure of respect for one another. The most interesting thing we saw might have come during the trailer for episode 6 when it looks like that someone is seriously hurt, maybe even killed out on the trail. Also, Yellowstone genealogy enthusiasts noticed a tombstone for Patience Dutton, who was born in 1930. It's not clear whose kid she is. Last thing is the music for episode 5, and I gotta give credit to a blog called Saving Country Music that's really done a great job of documenting all the songs through each of the first 4.5 seasons of Yellowstone. I found 2 important songs that were used significantly in episode 5. The first comes during the tack room scene between Rip and Beth when we hear a song called Intertwine by Senor May, and then at the very end of the episode as the cowboys are shoving off, it's a song called Far From Home by Aubrey Sellers. I'm Billy Dukes with Taste of Country. Thanks for watching, and thanks for subscribing.